Alright, well, hopefully I can do this more often where I just will games into existence like I did this one. So I wanted to go over some of my initial thoughts and reactions of the new Tokyo Xtreme Racer game. With the last episode of Retrospective being Tokyo Xtreme Racer 3, my addiction for more one-gun racing was at an all-time high. So let's get right into it. First, I just want to say, this is pretty much exactly what I wanted this game to be. It's a true and honest racing game with no microtransactions, no MMO features like a Forza Horizon, and there's no always online requirement, which is great. It really plays like a modernized PS2 game in the best ways possible. What I mean by that is all the content is available for you to just enjoy. You can hit the ground running with racing. Again, with it being offline, it's just like a PS2 where imagine that, you put the game in and you can start playing it. It's really, really awesome. It also has that same kind of charm and feel in the storytelling, just like in Tokyo Xtreme Racer 3 and some of the other games which I haven't done a video on just yet. I also think that putting this game out in early access was really a great move from Genki. They really haven't made a game like Tokyo Xtreme Racer since Import Tuner Challenge back in 2006, so it really gives them an opportunity to make some quick and continuous improvements, and it also really gives them a direct line for community feedback on how to modernize the game while making sure they're maintaining the original spirit and feel. With it being an early access too, it also lets them make these changes on the fly a lot faster, and it already gives the community that's buying the game the expectation, it's ahead of time you're going to think this is not a fully completed game, so if there's any issues, I can overlook them and provide feedback knowing that they'll get fixed. The great thing here is, even though it's in early access, it runs and plays better than even some full-out releases that come out. It's really great to see. And we've also seen a lot of improvements made already, like they listened to the community's feedback about adding a hood mirror for the camera. You can actually see which direction the rivals will take, which is something I was going to recommend and put in the improvement list, but they just did it already, which is awesome. They tweaked some of the game balance a little bit, which we'll get into in a moment. And they also allow you to reduce shake. So it's a lot of small things that they really listen to. I think they're also holding back quite a bit of the bigger things for either a full release or a really major update in early access. They've really made a lot of improvements upon the old formula of Tokyo Xtreme Racer, right? So the core gameplay loop is still find a rival, flash your headlights, race them. There's about 4 or 5 team members, beat them, race the leader, and then eventually you race a boss. But the great thing is that core idea we expect from a Tokyo Xtreme Racer game is still there. So tuning still plays a really big impact on your car's performance because the mods aren't everything. So you still need to dive in, tune your suspension, especially tune your transmission, because you throw all these parts at a car and it's still maybe limited on its top speed. The rivals are still super unique, very quirky, and still weird, which is really funny to see. The bios for each rival and boss are still present, so if you want to dive into some of the lore behind these characters or just have a really good laugh, I'm really happy to see that there's still some just outright goofy characters that we get to see and experience in the world. But they've refined that even further, so each character has their own, not fully unique, because if someone's in the same team, they look a bit similar, but I do love the idea of having these silhouettes, because it's a quick and easy, fun way to give more personality to the drivers outside of their bios. We interact with them in the parking areas now, so beyond going there to cool off your tires, parking areas are where you get to meet other rivals. You also pick up on how to beat and race some of the rivals and wanderers in the world. But it's really nice because you get some more dialogue. So even if you aren't someone who goes through and read each and every bio after you beat a team, you still get to experience, what the overall vibe of a team is, which is really great. The game balance has also changed a bit since launch, which I've seen some of the diehard fans of aren't as big of a fan because TXR is known for its difficult rivals. But me personally, I'm fine with some changes, especially in early access. I'm really okay with changing. It was Gloomy Angel was the biggest nerf, I believe, where apparently she was pretty tough to beat, even for some of the more seasoned people. But they nerfed her, but Genki also left her original difficulty in for her rematch, which is great because the added challenge gives you a pretty powerful car relatively early on in the game still. So if you want that challenge, it is still there. While I didn't get to experience that original level of difficulty from her, I still had trouble. The hardest boss for me was the Shua Strong. I don't know why. I had a pretty well built out RX-8, and he would just pull on me every time. So the difficulty is still in the game. If you've heard of TXR and you like that idea of difficulty, there are still parts that are challenging. Very rarely was I like breezing through rivals. I would hit walls in my playthrough, so it's good that those walls are still there. And I'm also okay with tweaking rival balance because there's hundreds and hundreds of racers after the initial story to battle. And Tokyo Xtreme Racer 3 had over 600 rivals in total. We're in early access right now, so we're going to see a lot more drivers to face, but even still in early access, there are a ton of racers and wanderers too. So even if we nerf someone that's a boss or a rival along the way, you still have more challenge coming in the future. Another really great improvement to the formula we know and love is the added tips. So you get some tips on performance parts, so when you get to the higher range, it lets you know, hey, you're not going to see as big of an impact until you get an intake, or vice versa. So it gives you an opportunity to maybe save some of your money and do all the mods at once. It also gives you tips on how to tune your vehicle, what each thing changes. Tokyo Xtreme Racer 3 had that as well, but it moved at a ticker in the bottom. Here you could just read it nice and easy, which is great. And my biggest favorite one was the where the rival's route goes. Nothing was more annoying than when you were given a loss or a draw because you didn't know where your rival was going while you were ahead of them. So nice little touch there. And you also can learn requirements to how to challenge wanderers. So by going to those parking areas, every once in a while, you'll meet an NPC and they'll give you some insight as to a wanderer in the area, if you've seen them, and how to challenge them, because they still have their weird and quirky requirements. Some will have a specific license plate with a kanji character. Some may need you to have a wing. There's a lot of them. So instead of always having to go and reference a guide, you can go within the game. It's very nice. The graphics are also incredible, especially for a really small team like Genki. The minimum specs are super generous. So you just need an i7 7700 or an i5 8400. If you're Team Red, Ryzen 5 1600X and a Ryzen 7 1700. GPU's also very generous right now, which is great given all the problems in the market now. You can either have a 1050 Ti minimum or an RX 5080. Only 16 gigabytes of RAM and just 12 gigs of storage space, which is insane. My old gaming computer was an i5 9400 and my 1660 handled it very well at medium settings, at least when I wasn't trying to record. The new machine I've built has a Ryzen 7 9700X and a 9070 XT, so I'm running max everything really great even while I'm recording. But if you don't have a latest machine or if you still haven't upgraded, this game runs very well on much older hardware, which is a blessing. It lets more people get to experience it. Moving on, I wanted to kind of dive into some areas I hope to see improved on. I want to start with the tiered progression system. I'm a really firm believer in having some form of progression system in games. When everything's unlocked from the start, it gets really boring, like really fast. The newer Forza Horizons do that where they throw you in the fastest car right away, and an hour in, I'm already bored. Tokyo Xtreme Racer 2025's tiered system is not something I'm the biggest fan of though, at least specifically in the area of unlocking cars and parts. For unlocking more cars, I preferred TXR3's method where you have to beat a rival that drives a car you don't have to earn it. But for parts, I think it's okay. I think it's acceptable to lock it behind specific boss battle progression. But I think adding the need to spend your battle points to unlock a tier is a bit excessive because the parts themselves are already pretty pricey for cash. So hiding it behind that extra tier of, oh, you got to beat the rival, oh, you got to use battle points, and now you can buy the part gets kind of annoying. Upgrading the size of your wallet is also a bit of an annoyance, especially when you're trying to save up for a slew of mods in one shot or a brand new car. It's one of those things you have to keep in the back of your mind as you progress further and further, especially if you don't plan on switching cars very often. All that said though, I do enjoy the addition of the perks you can add before you head out of the garage. Those are also tiered so you can earn lower levels, and then as you beat more and more rivals and as you earn more and more battle points, you can make that perk progressively stronger. So it's great if you're a new player that may be struggling. You can put a perk on that nerfs your SP loss from hitting a wall or a car, My favorite in the end game to run was the one that gets you just a little bit of extra cash when defeating rivals, or if I knew I was going to be trying to beat a lot of rivals in one night, I would put on the perk Long Run, because after a certain amount of kilometers, you get an extra credit bonus, which is really nice. But they're optional, so if you're a die-hard traditionalist, you can forego any of these extra buffs or cash that you would earn from these perks. You can turn it off, totally fine. Another thing I hope gets improved on either later in early access or at the full release of the game is the car list. It's really limited actually compared to Tokyo Xtreme Racer 3, which in the late game you could unlock European and American cars outside of some even cooler Japanese stuff. I wouldn't be surprised if the small list right now is due to these really high definition models that they just didn't have almost 20 years ago. So I wouldn't be surprised if we see those coming out later. But my biggest issue is kind of how the cars are tiered. The starter cars are incredibly slow, and the mid-tier cars that you earn after a few boss battles like the 180SX or the BRZ, honestly, probably in Tokyo Xtreme Racer 3, those could have been starter cars, because you think back, we had the FC RX-7 as a starter car. It was one of the more expensive ones, but that was available. The Toyota Chaser, the 180SX even, all those were starter cars, and now they're kind of mid-tier. So the early game, as you go through the first couple of bosses, can be a bit slow. The fastest cars are unlocked after beating the final boss of early access, which is Midnight Cinderella. So up until you beat her, the RX-8 is probably the fastest car I think you could unlock until the post game, because things like the 240SX, they quickly start to get outclassed by the Supers and Skylines that you encounter. Even though they're unlocked later after the boss is beaten, you encounter them super early on. Another thing I hope to see fixed during early access is the cost of some of the upgrades, really the visual upgrades. They are super expensive, which is very interesting, because unlike Tokyo Xtreme Racer 3, where you can choose between plastic, FRP, and carbon fiber, these new ones, it's just for looks. There's no extra benefit like that decrease in weight, or extra aero tuning to tweak downforce. So I'd love to see those, and the mods for your different brake rotors and brake calipers get a little less expensive, so that way you can enjoy it a little more early on. And I'd be more inclined to change how my car looks if they were cheaper, because right now mods are, I think the bumpers are about 100 or 150 credits per mod, so you times that by 3. The brakes are 100 for each thing. It adds up, and your money's better spent in performance. The dress-up mods from Tokyo Xtreme Racer 3 are also missing, like moving your license plate around, changing the gauge colors and the light colors, so I hope to see that return. We have neon as an option, and we also have the really cool, in Japan, you can do, on newer cars, license plates that actually light up, so we have that available. So I wouldn't be surprised again. I hope we see these, and I wouldn't be surprised if we saw them in the future, but just something we're missing that I'm missing out right now. Engine swaps are also missing from the game too. I just made a short about all the different types of engine swaps that you could do within TXR3 after you hit a certain amount of mileage, and they're missing right now. It doesn't impact too much in my opinion. I think once we start to add a lot more rivals to the endgame and you start to rack up the mileage on your car, it'll be nice to have that as an option just to play around with everything a bit more. And the one thing I noticed when I was selling some cars, it shows you their condition. So I'm wondering if, we will see that in the future, because nothing else references the condition of the car, but in past games it was always, your engine condition, because beyond swapping your engine out for something completely different, you could also just refresh the existing engine to give yourself a performance boost. All of that said, in its current state, Tokyo Xtreme Racer 2025 is without a doubt one of my favorite racing games from the last 5 years or so. Despite it still being in early access, it has so much more polish and an even better fit and finish than almost any AAA racing game that has 100 times the budget that this game has. And compared to the other old franchise that shall not be named that's been brought back, TXR has delivered on the heritage and gameplay that its title has. When you play this game, it's really apparent that Genki knows what the community wanted from a new game in the series, and they're also incredibly passionate for the work they do. Whether or not you've played a game in this series before, I definitely recommend checking this game out in early access. Genki has made the game much more accessible to those who are curious as to what it's all about and are very new to the franchise, while still making sure the core loop satisfies those who've played this game for decades. But those are my thoughts. Let me know what you think in the comments below. If you've played it, I'd love to chat about the game with you. If not, let me know what's made you so hesitant and if you're going to pick this game up and try it out. Until then, thank you so much for watching. Thanks for all your support, and I'll see you in the next video.